There are very few cars that I would put on the list of calling the best driver's cars of all time. I'm talking about vehicles like the Mazda Miata, the Honda S2000, the earlier generations of Chevrolet Corvette. I put those in a bucket of calling them some of the best driver engagement cars of all time. Now, in today's day and age, due to regulations, laws, and whatever else is needed, that feeling of driver engagement has become very slim in new modern vehicles. But there is still one new vehicle that you can purchase that I find to be exactly in that bucket. The Honda Civic Type R is the ultimate expression of Honda's racing spirit. Born back in Japan in 1997 as a raw track-ready hot hatch, after decades of JDM and Euro exclusivity, it finally hit the United States market in 2017 with the turbocharged FK8. And since then, it's been redefining front-wheel drive performance cars. From the high-revving EK9 to today's Nürburgring-slaying FL5, the Civic Type R has always been about one thing: hello everybody and welcome to Performance on Wheels. My name is Austin, this is my dad Todd, and this is the 11th generation Honda Civic, and this one being in the Type R variant. Known to be one of the greatest driving front-wheel drive cars of all time, and today we get the opportunity to get behind the wheel and see what it's all about.
The Civic Type R represents only 2% of all sales in the United States. So that's somewhere around 3,000 units a year that's sold. That makes this a pretty darn unique car from an enthusiast standpoint. There's not a lot of them. When you see them, your head's gonna turn and say, hey look, a Type R. I absolutely love the 4-year run of the FK8, leading up to the FL5 that we're standing in front of now, that was introduced in 2023, by the way. But maybe it's because I matured and got older. I kind of like the fact that the design of the FL5 matured and got older as well.
I would agree. I truly think that this blows the previous generation out of the water. The previous generation's aggressive lines, it did look good, but I think the new look that's going on here looks phenomenal. It is such a good looking car. It genuinely draws attention on the road. It has a great road presence to it. And I really like the now smoothed out body lines versus how aggressive the previous gen was. And it also just looks like a higher end vehicle.
I think mature is the right word to use, right?
I would agree.
It looks like it could fit into another class of vehicles versus just a subcompact or a Honda class vehicle. And I don't mean that as a negative comment at all, but it can go alongside of maybe the next level up cars just because of the way it looked. And the fact that they widened it out a little bit, about 0.6 inches. You can see that when you're looking at it from behind, is my opinion. There's a little bit wider track there. Now, when you talk about the things that have changed, there wasn't many things to improve on, but the three things that come to my mind that needed improvement from the previous generation were some gearbox issues, some cooling issues, and some tire issues. So what did they do? They put a bigger radiator, they put a bigger water pump pulling fluid out of the radiator, they put a single fan on the back of the radiator, bigger one versus 2 fans. They made the car a little bit wider so there can be a little bit wider tire. It's about a 1/2 inch wider track than the previous Type R. And then they made some improvements to the gearbox, like the suspension, the dampeners, and all that stuff. It's the same. I did read something that I thought was kind of interesting, that this thing has a really rough suspension. It's really firm.
Just admit is a little bit stiff driving around on a day-to-day basis, but I personally don't think it would ever bug me because it's really not that bad.
And that is designed that way, right? It's made to not have much dampening going on. They put a lot of the feel, or they put a lot of the expectation on the tire to perform well. And what that does is it obviously makes you a really driver-focused car on the feel that you get from behind the wheel.
Start off driving this Civic Type R in comfort mode to see what it's like on a day-to-day basis, considering that's what 80% of your driving in this car is most likely going to be. Now, one of the things that I do thoroughly enjoy about it is that the steering, even in its comfort setting, is quite heavy and direct. It's very easy to place this car wherever you want on the road, which is something that I always enjoy, whether I'm driving comfortably or aggressively. And the other thing about driving this on a day-to-day basis is the clutch is relatively light and the shifter is absolutely phenomenal. Just super direct, very notchy. You can tell exactly where you're putting it, and I do really like that. It makes driving this car on a day-to-day basis not only a joy, but it is easy. One of the easiest cars that I could recommend for somebody to learn how to drive a manual in is this one. It's just so easy to drive when it comes to getting used to and using a manual transmission on a day-to-day basis. Now, also in comfort mode, one of the things that I really like about driving every day is its rev matching downshifts. Now, when I'm coming to stoplights, you just simply downshift and let the clutch out with zero thought into it whatsoever. You push your foot in, you move the gear shifter, and you take your foot off the clutch. It's so unbelievably easy to drive in traffic when it comes to having to deal with downshifting. You do not have to do any of the rev matching yourself when just driving in traffic, which I love rev matching when I'm in an aggressive setting, but it is so nice to have that in traffic, and it's so easy. Once again, absolutely amazing for people to learn how to drive a manual transmission. But you don't drive this car to drive it around in comfort mode. Got gear shift indicator lights absolutely flashing at me as this thing screams to 7,000 RPMs. Now, one thing I can't stand, however, is yes, it is screaming to 7,000 RPMs, but it's not a true realistic sound. This car's piped in audio is so bad in comparison to a lot of cars that I've been in. It has one of the quietest exhausts I've ever experienced. It's so quiet on the outside. I like how the piped in audio does match with the engine revs, and it's kind of a challenge to determine if it's real or not. However, I just wish that they would have put a little louder exhaust on this car, because it most definitely is an automated tone. Let that VTEC kick in around 5,000 RPM and this thing absolutely screams. It is such a fun vehicle, and not only does the engine management change inside of its race setting, but the steering does as well. It becomes even more direct than it was in comfort mode. It becomes stiffer, the suspension changes, the inputs change. It sounds so much more aggressive when you do your downshifts. The rev matching is even faster. It really is a fantastic dual personality car. It's so much fun to just drive around and zip around in traffic or push hard on a racetrack. There is two different elements to driving this car, and the steering is unlike many cars you can purchase today. It is so not front wheel drive feeling. It's crazy how hard it is to get these front wheels to spin or to experience torque steer. It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't compare anything to most front wheel drive cars on the market. You would never guess just how much grip this car has and how well it can corner that it's only spinning the front wheels. It is unbelievable.
It's truly hard to understand all the engineering that goes into this car, but once you do understand it and take it all in, what makes this different from any other Civic, it really makes sense on why there's that $50,000 price point on even used ones now that have been out for a couple years. There is so much that makes this car good, and you're not going to understand it if this is just your daily driver. It makes a really good daily driver. It's practical, it's comfortable, but when you start pushing this car, that's when you understand what makes this car really special. Getting into the Type R it's awesome. These front seats, I love the red carpet, I love the red seat belts. It's really cool because it reminds you that you are in something that's really special, has a little adrenaline behind it. The bolstering is serious. They are very sport-focused seats. They hold you in place. They kind of have that suede feel fabric, so they're going to hold you in place when you're pushing some G's around corners. I enjoy the visibility, even with the hatch out back. You can see everything. You can place the car really well on the roadway because the sitting position is so good. The other thing I do want to point out about the Type R and the sitting position is the adjustability. So it doesn't matter if you're like 4'10" or if you're well over 6 feet tall. I am 6 feet tall, and if I have the seat all the way back, I can barely touch the clutch all the way into the floor. So there's some good adjustability there. Also, you can be very comfortable sitting down low, which a lot of people like to do from a cruising standpoint and everyday standpoint. But also, if you want to be in a more aggressive sitting position when you're out on the track, there has to be a good 6 to 8 inches of range on the height of the seat.
The front seat isn't what it's all about in the Civic Type R because it is made to be a practical daily driver on top of also being a track-oriented vehicle. So it has to have this dual personality to where the back seat is usable as well. I mean, heck, this thing gets 22 city and 28 highway. If that doesn't tell you that this is a great daily driver, I don't know what the heck does. And now with the seat pretty far back in the front here, I am genuinely impressed at how comfortable these back seats are. I can put my head all the way back with nothing touching the roof but my hair at 5'11". The amount of cushion in these back seats is very impressive. It's not a hard cloth. It genuinely has some cushion that you sink down into. And you actually sink down into it so much to the point where it almost acts as a bolster because you sink yourself into there. So I would not be too concerned about sliding around if I were to sit in the back seat of this thing on a track day. And you know it's a serious car when the front of the seat not only says Type R, but the back does as well. That way your passengers are absolutely positive that you're in a special vehicle. The absolute only thing that I can knock on the back seats of the Type R is the fact that there's no folding center armrest. Now granted, there is cup holders baked into the center, but I do like to have a spot to put my arm. However, the size of the trunk makes right up for it because it has so much room actually inside of there. You never would guess the amount of space in here, and not only is there a ton of room in the trunk, but unlike most performance-oriented sedans, the back seats still fold down.
Yeah, you can fit like a full-size bike down here. A full-size adult can fit in your trunk, maybe even two. I'm not even lying there. But the hatchback design, it really makes this car appealing from a daily driving standpoint. There's a lot of functionality. You mentioned high 20s. I know some people on a road trip have even been getting mid 30s. That's pretty awesome for
very impressive.
300 plus horsepower car that can do like a 13-second quarter mile. Is one of the best handling cars out there. Like, this thing is really cool. We're highlighting the practicality because it's really intriguing. There's not many cars that cross the boundaries of being able to set records on the Nürburgring, followed by 30 plus miles per gallon, followed by getting your mountain bike in the trunk on the weekends. Civic Type R is where it's at. We have been extremely positive about the Type R with our time with it, and that's because there's a lot of things to be really positive about. Everything that we've highlighted is, quite frankly, amazing about this car. But I'm gonna be a pessimist just for a minute to make sure I'm being unbiased about this car. And that is really when we start talking about the price. It is $50,000.
It's a lot of money for
Civic. At
Civic.
the end of the day, we're talking about a Civic, right?
Yep.
So this car, I think, is amazing when it is pushed. It looks incredible. I love the simplicity of the interior. But I feel like on a daily driving standpoint, if you're not pushing this car and you're just driving it around, you're going to wonder why you paid $50,000 for a Civic. You take it to the track and you're going to understand that in a heartbeat. But are you going to do that every day? And if your intent is to take it to the track and you're spending $50,000, would this be the car you're spending $50,000 to take around the track?
That is an excellent point to make. $50,000 is not a small chunk of change. And if I were to be given $50,000 to purchase a track car, this would not be it. It just simply wouldn't. There is too many other fantastic options out there in that price range. Heck, you can get a C6 Z06 for over $10,000 less than that, which is a phenomenal vehicle if you're wanting to build something or experience something out on the track. However, when you take in that whole, new car warranty thing, and you also take in the fact that this car brings a similar driving experience to the Miata, the S2000, when it comes to overall driving engagement, from the turn-in, the shifter, the clutch, everything about the driving experience on this modern car is just like an older vehicle, which is something that I desperately crave, that so many new cars are lacking. So that does make this car appealing. And the other thing that it's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but these cars honestly don't really depreciate that much.
There's that.
So yes, you are spending $50,000 on this car. However, you got to realize, after owning it for a pretty significant period of time, your depreciation on it's probably going to be quite minimal.
I'm so thankful that Honda and the Type R team has continued to build the Civic and has continued to push the boundaries of what makes a performance car great. In this day and age, you got to applaud them for that. This is an amazing car. Thank you so much for tuning into the video today. Comment down below if you have 50 grand, is this the car you're choosing? Or if not, what are you choosing?